Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some big news for the UCF fans as they land four-star running back Stacy Gage out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is what we were kind of talking about a little earlier when we're talking UCF. Now, as a Power 5 team in a Power 5 conference, I think you're going to be able to see UCF be a little bit more competitive in the state of Florida on the high school recruiting trail, right? As a group of 5 team, it always seemed like they were kind of taking the scraps of what Florida, Miami, Florida State weren't taking in the recruiting classes. Now, as a Power 5 team, I think UCF can go kind of head to head with these programs and start landing some more elite caliber talent from the state of Florida. And so when you project this team in the future of this team in the Big 12, I think a lot of UCF fans can be really excited about just kind of potentially the sleeping giant nature of this UCF program. We're going to talk a little bit about what Stacy Gage brings to this program. We're also going to kind of combine and do our summer scouting as we take a look, kind of an in-depth look of this UCF team heading into 2023. Now, before we get into that, again, just want to say thank you to you guys, whether you're here for the recruiting updates, whether you're here for the summer scouting as we kind of dive deeper into these teams and depth charts heading into 2023. It's been absolutely awesome, all the support you guys have shown. Again, over 5,000 subscribers. This college football community has been awesome. We love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And then more importantly, if you guys have some players I might be sleeping on, you UCF fans, let me know in the comment section. I learned a ton from you guys, so appreciate all of that. I want to talk a little bit about this Stacy Gage commitment and a little less. Like, you go to Rivals, this guy is a top 100 national prospect. So you kind of, depending on what recruiting service you use, he is a very sought after recruit. You take a look at the offer sheet, offers from Florida, offer from Florida State, offer from Miami, Oklahoma. And this dude was wanted by a lot of Power 5 teams in the country, and for good reason. One of the best running backs in the class. The fact that UCF was able to land his commitment, I think, tells you a little bit about how competitive UCF can be on the recruiting trail. You go back to 2023, landing top 100 prospect John Walker from the state of Florida. You're starting to see UCF trend in the right direction in terms of winning these big-time recruiting battles in the state of Florida. I don't think there's a better coach to have you to kind of lead you into the Power 5 world than Guz Malzahn, who, again, in my mind, like one of the better coaches in college football. Not really sure what Auburn was doing getting rid of him. UCF finds a gem of a coach heading to the Power 5. It's really hard not to be excited about what UCF can be as a Power 5 program, surrounded by so much talent at the high school ranks in the state of Florida. You asked me what 2 teams I think can kind of take over the Big 12 when Texas and Oklahoma leave. My first answer was Texas Tech, because I think when Texas and Oklahoma maybe transition their recruiting to more of that SEC area, I think Texas Tech could kind of clean up the state of Texas in terms of recruiting. You asked me another team, it's probably UCF and what they can do on the recruiting trail in terms of bringing in high caliber talent from the state of Florida as a Power 5 team. I'm not going to say they're just going to dominate the state of Florida, but a couple of those guys that probably would go to Florida or Florida State or Miami, I think they'll start coming to UCF as they have a lot more to sell as a Power 5 program in the Big 12. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about what this UCF team looks like in 2023. If y'all remember, and you guys were kind of rocking with this last year, this was a team that I was extremely high on. Like, I thought they were going to be a 10-win team, and 9-5. They were good last year. I feel like they left some meat on the bone in terms of what they could have been. They return a lot, and I think specifically on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot to be excited about in terms of what they can do in the Big 12, because I think the talent is there. I think when you look at teams like Cincinnati or BYU jumping up to the Big 12, maybe the talent isn't there. UCF has been able to recruit well enough to be competitive in the Big 12 from a talent standpoint. You look at the returning production they have, this is a team that I don't think a lot of Big 12 teams want to play. Let's start at the quarterback position with John Rhys Plumlee, who I think on average was very, very good for UCF. I think a little inconsistent at times. You take a look at their schedule and losing some of those games that were kind of head scratchers. John Rhys Plumlee needs to probably just clean up the consistency a little bit, especially in terms of pushing the ball downfield. Like, I think this team, when I watched them last year and kind of dug back into that 2022 film, they probably left some plays on the field pushing the ball downfield. I think John Rhys Plumlee is a very good intermediate short game passer. He's obviously a phenomenal athlete, very dynamic. In terms of hitting those explosive plays, I think a little bit was left on the bone. And you take a look at what he's surrounded by, if he can kind of figure it out as a starting quarterback, pushing the ball down the field, man, a ton of talent in terms of the pass catch room. Javon Baker, one of the better wide receivers in the Big 12. You might have one of the best duos in the Big 12 in terms of pass catchers. And Javon Baker from Alabama and Kobe Hudson. I dug a little bit more into Kobe Hudson, obviously coming over from Auburn, very talented kid. He didn't catch a football till October 5th against SMU. And I know he struggled with injuries early. He ended up finishing with 600 plus yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, Kobe Hudson quietly put together a phenomenal year after missing about a third of the season. So you're looking at Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson as being one of the more talented. I mean, keep in mind, these guys are both SEC quality players who are coming at UCF now. And this is one of the more talented pass catching duos in the Big 12. You sprinkle in a guy in Corey Kamage coming over from Marshall, a very, very good get in the transfer portal. Trent Whittemore coming from Florida. I know a lot of UCF fans are excited about, Xavier Townsend. It's a really good pass catching group that I think John Rhys Plumlee hopefully can tap into a little bit more than he did in 2023. But don't get me wrong. Like, where this team is going to be buttering their bread, is this running back room. I mean, you lose Isaiah Bowser, who I'm not out on Isaiah Bowser. I'm not down on Isaiah Bowser. I think he was very good. He was a very physical back. I don't think he was that explosive of a running back. And you look at this UCF team and their ability to hit explosive plays on the ground, Isaiah Bowser might have not been the best fit. RJ Harvey's good. DeMarcus Bowman. Keep an eye on DeMarcus Bowman, a former 5-star guy, went to Clemson, transferred out, pinballed around, was not cleared to play in 2022. If you're looking for some more explosiveness on the ground, DeMarcus Bowman has jets, but he's also, it's hard to argue. He's a bona fide 5-star, top 20 national player out of high school. This guy has the talent. And I feel like not a lot, he kind of was forgotten about, right? I mean, hits the portal after 2 games at Clemson, doesn't play at Florida, doesn't get cleared for eligibility in 2022. People forgot about DeMarcus Bowman. I did not. I think DeMarcus Bowman's probably running back 1 in this offense if everything works itself out off the field, because the talent that this guy has, I really do think is next level. You look at the offensive line, and it's hard for me to stay right up here and say this offensive line is better than it was last year, right? You're losing guys like Matt Lee. It's going to hurt. I think they did a nice job in the transfer portal, right? Amari Knight coming from Bama, Marcellus Marshall, first-team All-MAC tackle. This is a solid offensive line that's going to be able to run the ball. I think the story of this offense is John Rhys Plumlee kind of tapping in a little bit more to that passing attack, specifically hitting those explosive plays vertically downfield. If they can do that, you take a look. This is a team that scored 33 points per game last year, was top 30 in the country in scoring defense, top 10 in rushing attack, or scoring offense, I should say. I don't think it's crazy that this team moves up to a top 20 offense in the country, because I think the talent is certainly there. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, this is probably where I have a little bit more of some questions. I think the front 4 could be really good, though, right? Lee Hunter, hoping he can put it together, the transfer from Auburn. I think Ricky Barber's really good. Tremon Morris Brash is solid. Keep an eye on John Walker. 2023 kid. He's going to be a true freshman. It's rare to see true freshmen come in and dominate on the trenches in general, offensive line, defensive line, because you need to have that grown man body. John Walker, as a top 100 commit, is coming in with that grown man body. And I'm not saying he's going to start, but he's certainly a guy that I think is going to be making some noise for UCF in 2023. You look at that linebacker spot, Jason Johnson, solid. Well, it's a really, really solid linebacker crew. You lose a guy like Tatum Bethune or Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, I was going to say Tatum Bethune was 2 years ago. I think this linebacker group is still pretty good. The secondary is probably the question mark of, I'm not necessarily sure it's going to be bad, but they just bring in a lot of new faces, right? Fred Davis coming over from Clemson. It's a group that you lose a guy in Devontae Brown. That hurts. He was very good for UCF. Can they retool in the transfer portal for this team to have a quality secondary group? It wasn't great last year. It wasn't bad last year. that might be something that you have a question mark. You put a question mark on. We're not really sure what this group is going to look like. Now, what I'm most excited for is I think this schedule works out pretty damn good for UCF, right? You have Kent State, Kent State, I don't know if you're familiar with Kent State. They lost. They don't have a single returning starter on their team. They lost their head coach. Everybody transferred out. That team definitely might just be straight up a dumpster fire in 2023. On the road at Boise State's a very interesting game. 2 years ago, they had a phenomenal game in Orlando. That's going to be a very good game. Boise State is a quality football team. That's certainly going to be a game that I have on Saturday night. Villanova should be a win. And then you get into your Big 12 schedule where you miss Texas, right? The only one team that I think is going to be really hard for me to sit up here and say they're going to win is on the road at Oklahoma, right? Kansas State, that's going to be tough. And I'm not necessarily picking UCF to win that game. But Kansas State on the road is going to be a tough one. Baylor, very, very winnable game at home. You go on the road to Kansas. Kansas is an exciting team, but the talent and depth is still maybe questionable. On the road, Oklahoma's tough. West Virginia, certainly. After this Oklahoma game, I think these games are all winnable. Maybe Texas Tech on the road is going to be hard. Playing in Lubbock is very hard, but West Virginia at home, very winnable. On the road at Cincinnati, very winnable. Oklahoma State at home, Houston at home. Texas Tech, I think if you can get through this first half of the season, like maybe 500, and then you go into this bottom half of the season, I think you can go 4-1 to finish this season out. And so if UCF can have some success early, carry some momentum into this back half of the season, I don't think it's crazy to see a 7-5, 8-4 season for UCF year one. I'm not saying I'm picking that. That being said, I think this schedule is relatively appealing for UCF. This is a team that it might not all come together in 2023. But I think you have a lot to be excited about if you're a UCF fan in terms of the future and how you're moving into the Big 12 because of what you're going to be able to do on the recruiting trail. Guz Malzahn, I think, was a phenomenal hire. I think this program is heading in the right direction. You're heading to the Power 5. I think if you're a UCF fan, you have to be absolutely thrilled about what this program could look like in 3 to 4 years. But hopefully in 2023, you can start winning some games. You win some games. You go 8-4 in the Big 12. I think you're going to see the recruiting get quicker or get better quicker. Again, wanted to keep this one short. Wanted to talk a little bit about the commitment. Wanted to talk about how we think this UCF team is going to look in 2023. Appreciate the support you guys have shown the channel. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.